What if I told you that everything you think you know about pain is kind of wrong? We tend to think of it as this simple alarm, right? Something goes wrong in your body and a bell goes off in your head. But it's so much more complicated than that. Pain is really an experience that's created, shaped, and even controlled by this incredibly complex panel of switches and dials right inside your brain.
I mean, think about this for a second. How is it that a soldier on a battlefield can get a serious injury and barely even notice it? But you get a tiny paper cut in your quiet kitchen and it feels like the end of the world. The answer to that question reveals this hidden but super powerful truth. Our mind has an unbelievable amount of sway over what we actually feel.
And this isn't just some philosophical idea. We see it all the time. Wounded soldiers who report feeling very little pain in the heat of the moment. We see the crazy power of a placebo, literally a sugar pill, bringing real, measurable relief. There are even studies where a person's negative expectations completely cancel out a powerful, real opioid painkiller. Heck, even just watching someone you love in pain can light up those very same pain pathways in your own brain. So whatever is going on, the connection between an injury and the pain we feel is definitely not a straight line. So to really get what's happening here, we have to look inside the brain. Let's actually follow the path of a pain signal, from the moment you stub your toe all the way up into your central nervous system. You'd probably guess there's like a single pain center in the brain that lights up, right? But that's not what we see at all. Instead, when a pain signal comes up from the spinal cord, it ignites this whole network of different regions. You've got sensory areas, emotional centers, memory areas, all of them firing. It's less like a single boss getting a memo and more like a whole committee having a loud, urgent meeting about it. And here's where it gets really fascinating. The brain immediately splits the experience into two different jobs. First, you've got the pain sensation. This is just the raw data, the what. The somatosensory cortices handle this part. They're figuring out, okay, where is it? How long has it been hurting? Is it a sharp sting or a dull burn? But then, at the same time, you've got the pain affect, and that's the ouch. This is handled in totally different areas, like the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula. And their job is to decide how emotionally upsetting and awful that sensation is going to feel. Okay, so this split, this separation between the raw sensation and the emotional feeling, that is the absolute key. It's the secret to how our mind can control pain. It's like our brain has a control panel with all these different knobs that can dial the feeling of pain up or down. So let's look at the first knob on our panel, attention. I'm sure you've noticed this yourself. When you're distracted by something, a great movie, a conversation, something amazing happens. The actual intensity of the pain, that raw physical signal, it drops way down. But here's the weird part. The unpleasantness of it doesn't really change that much. So distraction is literally like a volume knob for the physical sensation. Now let's compare that to the second knob, emotion. When you're in a really good mood, you get almost the exact opposite effect. The physical intensity of the pain signal, it barely changes. But its unpleasantness, how much it actually bothers you, plummets. So your emotional state doesn't change the raw signal, it changes your relationship to that signal. And this is where it gets really, really cool. These knobs aren't just a metaphor. They are physically different circuits in your brain. The attention knob, that's the blue line you see, uses a pretty direct pathway right in the cortex. But the emotion knob, in green, uses this much more complex route that goes all the way down to the brainstem. I mean, how wild is that? These are two distinct, separate systems giving you two different ways to control your own pain. Of course, figuring all this stuff out is incredibly complex. A huge amount of what we know comes from animal studies. And, well, they have their own challenges. There's this great story from one lab where researchers gave rats an exercise wheel to study pain, only to find that a bunch of the rats just decided it was a fantastic place to curl up and take a quiet nap. So we've got this incredible, built-in system for managing and controlling pain. But that brings up a really important and kind of scary question. What happens when the control panel itself gets damaged?
The answer, unfortunately, is devastating. Constant, unrelenting, long-term pain, it doesn't just use the system, it can physically break it.
And this right here is one of the most important things to take away from all of this. Chronic pain is not just a symptom that you feel.
Over time, it causes real, measurable, physical and chemical damage to the very parts of the brain that are supposed to be controlling it. It actively takes apart your brain's ability to fight back. Let's look at the damage up close. In the prefrontal cortex, that's your brain's CEO, the hub for decision-making and planning, chronic pain leads to weaker internal wiring, fewer of the brain's own natural painkiller receptors, and a big increase in inflammation.
And we see almost the exact same pattern of damage in the anterior cingulate cortex. You remember, that's the area that handles the emotional ouch factor. Again, you see the same sad story: weaker wiring, fewer opioid receptors, and more inflammation.
The damage just keeps going, right into the insula, which helps shape our whole subjective experience of pain. Here, you get reduced gray matter volume on top of that same degradation of wiring and those crucial opioid receptors. Your brain's control panel is literally being dismantled, piece by piece. And what this all creates is a truly tragic feedback loop. The pain damages the brain's ability to control pain, which of course just leads to more pain. This makes the pain feel worse and harder to manage. And then it spills over, contributing to that brain fog, the anxiety, and the depression that so often go hand in hand with chronic pain conditions. It's a vicious cycle. But, and this is a really, really important but, this story does not end in despair, because even in the face of all this damage, the brain has this remarkable, incredible capacity to heal. Yes, the system can be broken, but it can also be rewired. The evidence for this is just so hopeful. You look at studies on conditions like osteoarthritis, and you see that after a successful treatment for the pain, those damaged brain regions, they actually started to normalize. The gray matter came back, the function improved, the damage wasn't permanent, it was reversible. And this brings us right back to where we started. The very same mind that shapes our experience of pain can also help heal the brain. We've got solid evidence that things like cognitive behavioral therapy can directly fire up these pain control circuits. Even more amazing, long-term meditation practice is linked with a physically thicker cortex in those exact regions that get damaged by chronic pain: the PFC, the ACC, and the insula. These aren't just fluffy coping mechanisms, they can be genuinely neuroprotective. So maybe we need to completely rethink our whole relationship with pain. It's not just something to be tough and push through. As the researchers behind this work put it, maybe it's time we ditch the old saying, no pain, no gain, for something a bit more accurate. No pain, healthy brain. Because it turns out that managing pain isn't just about feeling better right now. It might be absolutely essential for protecting the long-term health of our brain.